And yeah, no, I'm doing okay. How are you doing? So Debbie is one of my favorite people. She's my favorite parenting podcaster in the world. We've gotten to know each other really well over the last couple of years. And what are you up to?
We are actually on a vacation this week, which it feels unbelievable. I tried for months to find a place to rent, and this place showed up out of nowhere. We're in Delaware. I've never been to Delaware before, and it's actually really nice. We're already like, we need to come back here. So I'm just chilling with my family, and I brought a bunch of books, of which I'm like 2 chapters into the first one, so that's not really happening, but I'm enjoying some chill time.
Isn't that how it always goes? I've learned to travel with like one book now, and I barely touch it.
Yeah, that's smarter than what I did this time.
So we want to give you all here. So by the way, thank you for showing up on your vacation. And
my pleasure.
Want to give you all here, anybody who's live with us today or who watches the recording, we want to give you something that will help your life. And Debbie is, as I said, she has an amazing parenting podcast called the Tilt Parenting Podcast. And she has a book called Differently Wired. And she either coined the term or more or less really brought the term differently wired into the vernacular, which is so I credit her with this very consciously, because she really consciously brought it to light, but it's such a non-shaming word that is such a positive frame for how our kids are differently wired. And there's so much stigma with so many labels. So thank you, Debbie,
Thank you.
And her book is amazing, and it really helps parents understand these kids. So what we want to do is just give you something positive. So I want to start off. Do you want to ask me anything, Debbie, to start?
Oh gosh, I didn't prepare any questions for you, but yeah, I'm curious to know. There seems to be a lot of energy around the summit this time around. It's been super exciting to observe and to be a part of, and I'm just wondering. I'm wondering what you're seeing different from last year in terms of people's awareness of executive function. I feel like you're bringing it. You're just helping it come into the mainstream as something that people are much more aware of.
Well, that's one of the 3 goals of the summit, is to get it really into the vernacular in a way that is useful, where it's not just tossed around executive function by a few people and it doesn't carry much meaning, or the people who are talking about it don't really know what they're talking about. But I want it to be something where it is a complicated subject, but the word executive function is a more complicated word than it needs to be. But it's a complicated subject, but it's accessible, it's understandable once you immerse yourself. So I think one of the differences I've seen this year is I think people have immersed themselves more. We worked really hard to make it easier for people to get more out of it. And I think it's allowed people to have more immersion, because I think since every speaker is saying the same thing but in different words, it takes a lot of immersion for that to click in the brain. But I think people have really invested themselves in their time and energy in the speakers to absorb that. So I've seen that. I've also seen a lot more connection in the Facebook group of people supporting each other, and worked really hard in how I articulate things in there so that people feel safe to be vulnerable and to share and to help each other. So I've seen that. And I've also seen a lot of people who have learned a lot of different things, whether it's executive function or other things that are related, but sort of outside of it, but are definitely related. I've seen a lot more involvement from people helping each other with that type of stuff. But I've also seen a lot of brand new people comment, oh my gosh, this is brand new to me. This is really shifting my thinking. And then that's what we really want. As you know, as a parent, who like personally from your experiences, like we want to have the knowledge and the mindsets so that we can consciously serve our kids more effectively, so that they can have a better quality of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I was just thinking before I jumped on the call, I went for a walk and I was thinking about how within my, I've done more than 220 podcast episodes at this point. I've interviewed kind of all the major players, so to speak, in the parenting expert scene, and authors of all the books that we've all read, and authors of really mainstream parenting books. And I was just thinking about the fact that even the authors of mainstream books who are writing really about typical neurotypical kids and families, on a personal level, I happen to know that almost all of them have kids who have some sort of learning differences and struggle with executive function on some level. And I was just thinking that is a big part of this movement, right? Is to just, for all of us to be more open and transparent about this stuff so that there is no stigma and there's just much more understanding. But I don't know, it just kind of struck me how many, we're everywhere.
Yeah. And I asked most of the speakers, like, why does this matter to you? I think I asked all of them. I try to ask that in everyone. And yeah, it is the wounded healer, or that we teach what we most need to learn, like
Right.
people who have been in the trenches. And I really wanted heartfelt people. And I think when you get people who are coming from the heart, it's because they're living it or they have lived it.
Yeah.
And they have done so much almost obsessive research and learning and passion into what's going on, that they've really developed an expertise to share with the world. So
yeah.
I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to ask you one or two questions. And if anybody wants to ask anything, go ahead and type it there. And I am able to see that right now, unless my screen goes black like it did yesterday during Q&A.
Thanks.
So I guess my question for you would be, after interviewing 200 plus people and hearing so many stories, and I think what's a good one for today is school has started for some people and is starting for others, and it's chaotic, and there's a lot of unknowns. And you and I did a massive thing, which is one of the bonuses in TFOS this year, but we did a massive deep dive into this stuff. But after that deep dive, after everything, what's one hopeful thought you just want parents to have, that you know in your heart?
I am really feeling very strongly that our kids are going to be okay. Just in relation to what's happening right now, I have been in community with, again, some pretty incredible, like, people that I've looked up to, my mentors in this space, people who've been, writing and working with kids and families for 30 plus years. And everyone is very concerned about increasing levels of anxiety and, just what is this doing to our kids in the short term. But I think there's a very pervasive sense that in the long run, our kids are not only going to be okay, but they're going to be thrivers, actually, as a result of this, what's happening now. And that's part of our responsibility, right, is to make sure that we show up in our relationship with our kids throughout this strange time in a way that kind of sets them up to take away the most from what's happening, to learn more about themselves, to understand their resilience, to just understand themselves better. And that's where, my talk was about the deep dive that we do with ourselves, but that's where I always turn it back to us. Like, what's the work that we can do on ourselves to ensure that we can come to our kids and support them without our fear or our own anxiety kind of muddying the waters. But I think there's such an opportunity here. And, I don't feel this way every day. Some days I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm right there in my own despair cycle. But I always try to return to get grounded and return to what's happening right now and what can I do in this moment to support my child and to help him kind of be okay through this and know that he has the resilience to get on the other side. So yeah, I think I'm just feeling And I would like parents to know, I mean, this is a scary time. It's really unsettling. And our kids and we can totally get through this, and we can all be stronger for it.
And you look so calm and rejuvenated. And for those who don't know you, you're
I don't always look this
not
way.
always like this, and it hasn't always. And I don't even know that now would be easy, but Ash is in a great place right now.
Yeah.
My perception in knowing you, and
Yeah.
but it's been a long journey. Can you, and I want you to speak to that, because, and Ash is 16 now, right?
He just turned 16. Yeah.
And this one says, Debbie, you really made me understand my daughter, but I'm so late to the party. She's 29 and not speaking to me, and now I get it, but it's a little too late.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's too late, but obviously, do you have hope for somebody who says their daughter is 29 and not even speaking to them?
I do. First of all, that sounds incredibly challenging, and I don't know the intricacies of that dynamic, so I can't speak specifically to that. But what I know can be so powerful, and what I, as an adult child of my own parents, like vulnerability, and coming to our kids with true vulnerability, and with that true intention to repair, to listen, to actively be empathetic, and to not have our own agenda. That's really where the relationship, like a true relationship with our kids, start. And I think that's really hard for a lot of us as parents, but that is, for me, yeah, my son is in a, relatively, he's in a much different place than he was when I started this journey. That's for sure. I mean, he has his ups and downs like everyone else, and this has been super isolating for him and challenging in so many ways. But I think the thing that has helped him the most has been the way in which we have chosen to prioritize our relationship with him, to be vulnerable, to make mistakes, to work hard, to repair, to keep showing up, to not have to be right, to not have to push my own or my husband's and my vision of what his life should look like, or where he should go to school, or what kind of grades. We've really tried to respect him as a person who's creative, resourceful, and whole, and step back where we can. And it doesn't mean that it's always smooth sailing. And we had a bump last night because, he expressed some things, and we weren't in the mind frame to really listen to what he had to say. And then we had to go back in and be like, gosh, I really wasn't hearing what you had to say. And I'm sorry, your feelings are completely valid, and I get it. And I didn't need to say anything else. So I would say that vulnerability piece is really important. And I think it's hard because a lot of us were not raised that way. That was not the way we were parented.
Right. We were often taught, don't feel, it's not strong or cool to feel, to show what you think and feel, to express. It's not safe to, you'll get shamed, you'll get put in your place. What you were invalidated. So many of us have grown up with very well-intended teachers and parents. Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, we've had that experience, and then we've taken that on and embodied that. And then we have a lot of unlearning to do, which is what's so good about your talk. It was that it's really about the parents' deep inner work. Yes, you can support your kid in a million ways, but because I'm seeing another one. Here's one that says, I tried when she's home, but I couldn't handle her behaviors. Same here. My daughter is 23, living outside. No one at home wants her to be home. And when I was 21, that's when I finally started changing my life. I mean, I failed out of college, dropped out of a second college before failing out, almost failed out of high school. I was just not easy for my parents. And you don't need to know my whole story because my life is very public anyway. But let me tell you, what it takes to fail out of college and drop out of college and almost fail out of high school is a lot of hard work in the wrong direction. But have hope. You're 23-year-old, you're 29-year-old. The more, and this is, I think, not necessarily what people want to hear, but it's the more that we do that work on us, that opens the door for our kid to step in again.
Well, we know that we can't change anybody, right?
Oh shit.
And
Yeah, my mic, I'm sorry, everybody. My mic was, somebody just said, it sounds like I'm talking through a tin can.
now you sound like a DJ at a really good radio station.
Hello, welcome back. Sorry about that.
So what I was saying is that we know that we can't change anybody anyway. Like, we can't control anyone outside of ourselves. Like, it's impossible to do. And that's also not what we're here for. Like, again, this idea that we are all who we're supposed to be, right? We all are here as our own unique selves. And really the only thing we can do is focus on how we show up. And you know, for differently wired humans, they're on a delayed timeline often. So the maturation, all of those things, it's really common for differently wired kids to leave college after a year, or to flunk out of school, or to bounce around and need to take another gap year. And that's common. And that's, and it doesn't mean that our child has failed. It doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. It doesn't mean that they can't be happy, that they can't thrive. It doesn't mean any of those things unless we make it mean that to us. So this is really hard work to do, to truly figure out how to support and love and hold a space for our child to be who they are and not be attached to the outcome. Of course, we're going to be attached. They're our kids. Like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't care, but I'm saying we have to really be aware of the way that we are trying to control their path, because these kids are going to push back on it, right? They're going to rebel what we try to impose on them. And it may feel more painful in the moment, because sometimes control can feel safer. But at the end of the day, we are not controlling anyway. We're just potentially creating more conflict. So it's really tricky. But I think that's why, again, it has to just keep coming back to us and doing that work. And it's work you have to do every day. I do it every day.
Mm-hmm. I have two more questions from the audience, and then we'll wrap up. This is, how do we build self-esteem and confidence in our students so they feel more at ease participating in class discussions in person and online? There's so much pressure to say the right thing these days, and students would often retreat to be a quiet observer. Especially with our outside-the-box thinkers, this can create anxiety and a tendency to withdraw from participating. So the question was, though, how to build self-esteem and confidence.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because it's something a lot of differently wired kids have had enough negative experiences that they might have lower self-esteem or self-confidence than other kids. I think it's for parents who have kids who struggle with that. I think it's making sure to create opportunities where they can show up as themselves. You might have to manufacture some of those. They may not exist, but you might not find, I tried, believe me, like to find the perfect camp or the perfect program where, my kid could show up and just be seen and really kind of thrive in that area. It's not always possible. And so sometimes it's manufacturing that, maybe it's creating a small cohort, or even a relationship with a mentor can be incredibly powerful, to have that kind of an adult that our child looks up to, who can kind of reflect back to them and help them kind of grow in who they are. And it's also something that we have to work on over time. There's no quick fixes for this. I will say, that the research shows too, that for all kids, like taking safe risks is really important. So that could be, because it puts successfully tackling a risk and overcoming it. It's like putting money in the self-esteem, self-confidence bank account, which then they have to draw on when they really need it. So thinking about ways to create opportunities where your child can safely push themselves a little bit, that can be really helpful. And I had a second great point, and it totally left my brain. Yeah.
Well, I can follow up on that too, and this might jog your memory, but I think the other thing is with, if you follow me, I love attachment theory, but is doing your best to make sure that your child feels seen and heard and known and understood, to really make them feel seen. Because what we tend to do is we tend to gravitate towards, we are biased towards the negative. So we tend to be like, oh, you got an 89, why didn't you get a 90? Oh, you cleaned up your room, why is that sock still there? Oh, we just tend to see the things that come out of our mouth are so often what's wrong. And it's it takes a while to shift that practice. But I will tell you, in my practice, working with teens all the time, that is one of the biggest things that I do, is I'm constantly noticing their effort all the time. I mean, I spend so much energy as a coach, so much energy, like looking for what they're doing, quote, right, and verbally acknowledging them for it in a meaningful way. And when I say meaningful, I don't mean like an intense way. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I really pause and I'm like, dude, I want you to really hear me right now. But a lot of times I do what's called pebbles of positivity, where I'm just like, oh, you just did your backpack. You just reorganized your backpack on your own. I didn't even tell you today. You've been coming here for 2 months, and I've always had to. That is so cool. And I turn away, and I want it to sink in. But the point is so much of building their self-esteem is seeing, like truly seeing them in their effort, because they're often not validated for what they are trying to do. And they get to the point, especially in middle and high school, where they're like, why should I even try? Nobody notices what I do anyway. So really on ourselves as the adults, like working very, 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 I call it the 3-to-1 rule. Some people call it the 5, whatever, but 3 positives to every 1 negative. And you're not going to be there tomorrow if your ratio is completely flip-flop right now, but that's the direction.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you actually mentioned that the first time you came on my podcast. And I would add to that too, ask not just those positive things like great job or this is cool, but I also think it's really important to ask lots of process questions all the time, because that helps them feel confident, have a sense of agency, and kind of get to know themselves better. So, my kid is always like doing, I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing like really cool stuff with these programs and stuff on his computer. And I'll just ask him like, well, what was the inspiration for that? How did you get that idea? What made you think of that? Yeah. So that kind of stuff, it helps they think about it, and you're showing an interest in them, which makes them feel good. They feel seen. And it also helps them kind of better understand their own thinking, which helps them build confidence. But what I wanted to say that I forgot is, and this is something we always talk about too together, is like, we always have to look at the long game. This isn't there's no quick way to build up our kids' confidence. So this is something that we have to just commit to showing up in this way, and to trusting in the process, and consistently do the things that we're talking about.
And the more we invest in our own self-care and our own deep interpersonal work, that is just modeling for them. It's contagious. They are we don't even have to tell them we're doing it, but their nervous systems are feeling that we are building our own self-confidence and our own self-esteem. And we love ourselves enough to invest in making ourselves a better person, not just for the family or the spouse or the kids, but for ourselves. Yeah. That is super powerful.
Yeah, I always use the word self-interested, because, I know that there can be a disconnect between self-care and is that selfish if I'm taking time for myself. And I say it's self-interested. And I know that I could not show up for my family in the way that I know that I want to if I weren't taking care of myself. And I'm pretty self-interested about making sure I get my walks in or my runs in or whatever I need to do, my AirPods, and tuning everybody out for as long as I need to. So that's critical. And of course it models that for our kids. So it's a win-win for sure.
It's funny, a dear friend yesterday was telling me I need to take some self-care time yesterday. And I'm like, I'm not doing that right now. That will happen after the summer. But I did swim. Like, I know my bare minimums, but right now this is crunch time. But if I don't do the bare minimum, like get in a good rigorous hike or swim, or I just know myself, I will. So even during the summit, I've been carving out time, and I'm doing the minimum of self-care that I can, but I am doing but as we and this is what we want for kids. We want them to be metacognitive, reflective, self-aware of what their needs are.
Yep. Yeah. And to know that, like, I love that you just know that's what you need to do. So you just do it. And that's what we want for our kids, right?
Mm-hmm. So here's the last question. What are some references to help me learn and help my 2E kid in a homeschool environment? I want to set him up to thrive. He's 11.
Well, I would say take a listen to the podcast that I did on homeschooling. My son, I homeschooled him for 6 years. We started when he was 9. He's 2E, and it was messy. So that might give you some insight into how we really adapted our school. So it was much more self-driven as opposed to trying to follow a curriculum. I think self-driven works much better for 2E kids because they have the capacity to go really deep in certain areas. And if you can design a curriculum around their areas of interest, there's no limitations to where you can go with that. And I would also just say, this isn't a resource, but just to collaborate, design the school together. That was a mistake I made. My first year was thinking I could top down this, that I was the principal and the teacher, and I was going to create all the fancy schedules and all those things because I thought, well, gosh, schedules are important, and they are. But I did it without buy-in. You know, Seth's always talking about buy-in. I did it kind of as the head of school. And so when I started looping Asher in and was like, this is our school. What do we want? How are we going to design this? How are we going to create our schedule? How should we be flexible with our schedule? We did it all together. And that really set us up for success. Colleen Kessler's Raising Lifelong Learners has a good podcast too about homeschooling 2E kids. So that's one to take a listen to.
And somebody said, please announce my next live event. How should I get on? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That's a good question. I think I put it in the email this morning. The email that I sent out at 5 o'clock this morning and set my alarm at 5 o'clock this morning so that I could make sure it went out properly.
I think Dana is your next. I think Dana is coming on it.
Yeah, and my computer's not working right.
So
let me see if I can get my computer working right. I'm having bizarre challenges on the, okay. 10:30 a.m. Colorado time is Dana.
Yeah.
And then, thank you for asking this. And then 11:30 a.m. Colorado time is Tom. And then 1 p.m. is Gretchen Wagner.
You guys, can I just say something? Seth, you were the bomb. Like I'm in awe of you. I mean, last year when you created this summit, I kind of forced your hand because you flirted with the idea of the summit, and I kind of started introducing you to people to talk to. So,
you were very
amazing.
big in helping. It was a conversation with you that flipped the switch.
Yeah.
Essentially that. The next thing I knew, I had like 7 people committed to something that didn't exist. And
I know, but then you made it. And now this year, like, I'm just like watching you and what you've created and the energy surrounding it and the people you have and all these Facebook Lives and the way you're showing up. And I just like, props to you. Like, I really think this is, well, we know how we feel about each other and the way we show up. So I'm just super grateful for what you're doing, and I really hope that you can practice some serious self-care after this. You're going to need a week to crash, but you guys, this is what Seth has pulled off here is amazing, and what he's created and all the bonuses and all of it. So just a big thank you to you.
Thank you. Yeah. And we really, I do, like, during this time I'm doing my self-care, but the minimum, but I am pouring every second ounce of any of my energy. I do believe, this might be cheesy, but I do believe I was born for this. I was made for this. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm put everything into this.
Yeah.
And I will shamelessly plug the All Access Pass too, because I'm proud of this, and we really made something amazing for you that hopefully you can be like, oh my gosh, this will really create value in my family. really, if you do saturate yourself in this and it helps shift something that has a positive domino effect for years to come, I just really want, hopefully you feel like it's really worth it. And if people need financial help, I said that we were giving away 10 scholarships, and we've given away, I don't even know how many partial scholarships. So we're here to hopefully contribute to your life. But yeah, thank you for saying that,
Awesome.
Debbie. I
Yeah.
feel seen. I'm so grateful that you really helped me get over that, the initial hump that did set the dominoes of this in action that made it real, because I love what I'm doing. So thanks.
It comes through. I love that you've done, yeah. I love that you've created the scholarships too. I mean, yeah, anyway, you're just the real deal, and that's why I like you so much.
You
because,
too.
Yeah. Because I mean, the people in the parenting space tend to be amazing humans anyway. So not to discredit anyone else, but your relentless passion and dedication to this community, it's really wonderful.
Well, and you people showing up to the community is amazing. I always say what comes from the heart goes to the heart, and the people that are showing up are just, you all are here showing up for yourself and your kids, and it just shows. Really, the group is just, the Facebook group's the easiest place to see it, but it just shows that there's so much love in these human beings. So I'm
awesome
inspired
by, for sure,
by the vulnerability and people just being like, I want answers, and they're like out there actively seeking. So I'm so impressed by you all. Yeah. So, all right, we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I'm going to the beach, people. I'm just gonna say that. I'm heading to the beach.
Enjoy it for all of us.
I will.
All right, Debbie, I'm gonna end this Facebook Live here.